Thank you. Our final speaker is Denis Escobar from Honduras. He has worked with the Ministry of Health for the last 5 years, and during the last 3 of which he has been leading entomological surveillance with a special focus on insecticide resistance in both malaria vectors and arbovirus vectors. And he has recently assumed a position at the National University of Honduras in their Center for Genetic Research, where he will be liaising closely with the national program, looking more on operational research aspects of insecticide resistance and genetic diversity of mosquitoes in Honduras. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Well, thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you to the CDC to support this symposium. That's, I believe, is very important in the context of integrated vector management, not only for malaria elimination, but also for vector-borne disease transmission in the Americas. So, in a very briefly and summarized way, the idea is to show you how is that the integrated vector management concept has been integrated to our national policy, starting and seeing that is a cornerstone for malaria control programs in these elimination settings. But also, I'm trying to show you some about the optimization of an advance that we have been making to the entomological routine surveillance, and with more focus on insecticide resistant surveillance. And talk just a little about that Prayot already gently mentioned about the microstratification experience that we are having in Honduras to try to understand these hotspots from epidemiological perspective, but also from biological and, in this case, anopheline perspective. So just a little background. We are a little country, actually, but we are divided in 20 sanitary regions. And in these 20 sanitary regions across the country, we have established around 21 entomological units. And I must say that in these entomological units, they're only technicians of middle level. Honduras, as the rest of Central America and some countries of South America, have a huge gap in terms of entomological human resources. Very well prepared. So also it's a challenge for us to do a lot of work with a few people. So that is important to mention. And we have already 13 entomological units in the department with, we have reported of malaria cases. So this is a little background of the epidemiological status. Prayot already said that for us in Honduras, the most important area is the area of the Mosquitia, where we have more cases of Plasmodium vivax, but also of Plasmodium falciparum. And now, what has been done in Honduras? Honduras has recently started a new phase for fight against malaria in an elimination setting, and we are trying to put on our national strategic plan some inputs from the global technical strategy, but also of the recently delivered global vector control response that is a more wide open approach to can support of these entomological and insecticide resistant surveillance capacities in the countries. Okay, so just the idea of the integrated vector management for us is to take into account these elements. Of course, sustainability, collective efforts, because in a country like Honduras and in this area where we have a lot of vector-borne disease, there's a lot of partners, and there's not enough money, but there's money. So the idea is have to collective efforts to maximize the impact of what we are doing with what we have. And this is some inputs of our entomological situation. I must say that all this is made with a support of global funds, as Prayot said, but also with the Clinton Health Access Initiative, who has support and with who we are trying to improve or data of the entomological behavior, but not only of Anopheles albimanus, who is the main vector in our country, but also of other anophelines that are probably participating in the transmission of malaria. And I must say that there is a huge gap of knowledge in these other mosquitoes, because in America, the two mostly anopheline studies are Anopheles albimanus and Anopheles erlingi, but what about the other anophelines that could be participating in this kind of transmission? And when we are thinking about eliminate malaria, we have to think about every possibility that it could be in these elimination settings. And also just a show of our distribution in this case of Aedes aegypti and also Aedes albopictus, and about distribution of Lutzomia. This is a phlebotomine who transmit leishmaniasis in the country. So we have resistance, of course, like most of the countries, a lot of countries in the globe. So, but our insecticide resistance to pyrethroids is very focused into mainly areas who have been a history of agriculture practices. So these areas are in the department of Olancho in Caracamas, and also in the department of Comayagua. So according to, in order to improve and to avoid an epidemiological impact against our objectives, we make some political decisions to fight against this insecticide resistance, according to what the WHO and PAHO recommend. So, but also we try to sustain this surveillance in terms to know, okay, what are the anophelines that are circulating in some particular area, how they have his behavior, what are his biting right, and what is his preference to bite and to feed him. But of course, there's a lot of gaps in that. So the mainly point here, and that have been discussed with PAHO and other partners in not only Honduras but also in the continent, is how we use the laboratory data to put on and implement a quite good vector control intervention. Because one thing is to know that you have a percentage of mortality, but how this affect to a population in a determined area. So that is the main issue. What we have to do is try to prioritize and identify where and how we can implement this vector control intervention. And mainly big decisions that we made is in order to identify insecticide resistance priorities and decide what kind of insecticide are we going to use. I must say that in Honduras, by national policies for vector control and for public health interventions, we are only allowed to use pyrethroids. And in the case of malaria, we have to be made some arrangement to use carbamate, in this case benzocarb, for the use of IRS in some areas where we have been documented the insecticide resistance to pyrethroids. But in this case, and here we have we have colleagues of SAP, of ABT, with who we have been made some research and some evaluations for Aedes, for example. And for us, it's a big issue because for special nebulizations, we only can use pyrethroids. We are not using neither organophosphates or carbamate. So that is probably an incongruence in our policy, because when we detect some resistance to what kind of insecticide, we have to make some choices. But at a policy level, it's more complex than what one can think. So in terms to vector control interventions and what are we gonna do to manage this information, the idea is to implement very sustained interventions with IRS, but also with LLINS, because we use to both interventions in our country. And the idea is to sustain at least to 2020, because it's the date until we are going to have funds for global funds and all the other partners. So let's hope to eliminate malaria to 2020. If you don't, okay, you're going to be in a little trouble. But the idea here is to try to coverage the most amount of person in risk, and try to be making a micro certification. And here's where the things go very funny, because we are going to have a very sustained and quietly planned interventions, but the idea is have all these coordinations at a regional level, but also with other partners, as I mentioned before, and also with NGOs, who we can coordinate and implement. But the idea and the issue in our country is all these interventions must be coordinated through the Ministry of Health. Because if we are not coordinating all this, probably what we are going to have, is a lot of options, but none impact. And that is truly trouble for us. And also, I have to mention that we are making some improvement in this case with Chai Foundation to implement an online system for reporting of entomological data, included insecticide-resistant data for vector control activities through DH2 platform. So these are some pictures of some achievement that we have made in terms to strengthen the facilities and capacities of our national equipment and human resources. And all this has been not only with funds for malaria, but with the integration of several funds, because we have designed a network to try to study entomological behavior of some vectors. So the idea is to put all money in these entomological capacities. So not only if you have to do for malaria, but also for arboviruses or other kind of vector that may appear, like Culex, that is a gap that also we have in our country. So I must say that in terms of that, it's very important to mention the support of the WHO, the PAHO, with some political decisions that have been making in the recent years. And being translated, all these information and documents to national policies that could lead the national strategy, but also the national activities to make the real achievement of eliminate, in this case, a disease like malaria. So also it's very important, as you may know, and there are several discussions in this conference about the capacities of the country to do the things. I mean, there is great that there's a lot of research in some areas, but the key issue here is how we can use all this information and make priorities to implement in the countries with the capacities of the countries. So in that term, I must say that also we have been make some good coordination with some partners like ABT, SAP, ABT, with who we strengthen the capacities for insecticide resistance in Aedes. But also, as many of you may know, the methodologies to evaluate insecticide resistance for Anopheles is basically the same for Aedes, and some change in doses and some fundamental things. But actually, when we try to strengthen the capacities for malaria, we are thinking in a very integrative way to look the insecticide resistance as a very key priority for the country. And also, with the support of PAHO, some workshops to improve the knowledge on integrated vector management. So some gaps and challenge that may be important to mention. Of course, the insufficient funds for vector control implementation, and the needs for community participation. That for us is very important in this context. The generation of scientific evidence, of course, but how is this adopted to national policies, and in terms to could have more stronger policies in terms to achieve the goals. we are trying to develop some research lines to understand in a more basic but also operative way the behavior of this insecticide resistance for Anopheles albimanus in these particular areas, and how this could be being a threat for the reintroduction of malaria when we achieve the zero transmission in a very focalized zone. So, and also continue with the integration of knowledge and capacity for entomological units. And what are our future prospects, or what are thinking to do now, is go forward through the molecular characterization of Anopheles population, because as you saw in the other maps, we have several species morphologically identified, but we don't know if we have cryptic species or if we have one only species. So there's a gap of information there, and also make some insights to approach for insecticide resistant profiles. That is where CDC is very important for us, to trying to find these molecular markers for insecticide resistance entomological surveillance, in terms to not only know that there is a genetic resistance, but also how we can prevent this resistance. But because for our country, it is more important to know when it's going to happen than when it's already happened. So in terms to acquire insecticide, to modify policies, and to avoid reintroductions, or to handle and management in a very good way this behavior of insecticide resistance profiles. And also to know surveillance in dominant, as we know, but also for secondary vectors, and improve of monitoring and evaluation system for vector control activities that also are important. So thanks, of course, to our partners, that are several partners, and special thanks to CDC to organize this symposium. And Audrey, thank you very much. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Denis. We are just about out of time, but we will take a couple of questions if people have them. Okay, well, great. Well, I would like to thank all of our speakers for a very enlightening symposium, and to our audience for participating with us here today. This concludes the session, and it concludes ASTMH this year as well. So safe journey home to everyone. Thank you.